everybody. This is Craig Scott, founder and CEO of Fuuz. We are here doing the Manufacturing Matrix podcast. This is episode 2, and I'm excited to tell you guys today that we are talking with one of our partners, Eric Doubell from Razorleaf. Razorleaf is a great partner of ours, and they have a ton of experience. And I'm going to hand this over to Eric right now to give us a little bit of his background.
Thanks, Craig. Well, again, I'm Eric Doubell. I'm the president and founder of Razorleaf. And Razorleaf, we're a services company primarily focused around engineering and manufacturing technologies. We help folks implement digital technologies to help improve their processes, make things faster, make things better. So we've been doing this since about 2000. We work with a lot of different customers in different industries, so we don't really have a specific industry we work in. Work in air defense, med device, aero, auto, industrial equipment, all those different areas. And really, we just like to help folks get more with the tools that they've got and help them realize what they're trying to realize with those tools.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate that intro there. One of our go-to-market strategies really is our primary go-to-market strategy, actually, is working with partners like yourselves, right? And getting you guys engaged in the Fuuz product, your technical staff, as well as your business process experts, understanding what Fuuz is capable of and what you can use it for to help your customers through their digital transformation process. I know you guys are experts in the area of PLM and MES. And can you talk to me a little bit more about how your practices would engage with customers from a PLM, MES standpoint? Is there a typical way to encounter those types of engagements? What does that process look like? Are there, various milestones and, that kind of thing? I'm just curious about your project. Plans.
So it's actually somewhat similar regardless whether it's PLM or MES. And basically, we usually come in once a customer has chosen the software that they want to use and are looking for someone to help them, implement it the right way. There's a lot of different ways to implement software, and there's a lot of different things vendors recommend, and then you have to mesh that with how the customer does things and how the customer wants to do things. So we'll typically come in near the end of the sales process. So we can get an understanding of what the customer is looking to accomplish with the solution. And then we help try to map the vendor's software to the customer's processes. So we'll work with customers to understand their current state. We know what the software is capable of, so we help them develop a future state that they want. Then we'll build the requirements around that, and then we'll implement different work streams in more of a once we have the basic requirements, then we work in more of an agile methodology where we'll have sprints, we'll put stuff out, we'll get some feedback, and we'll iterate until that work stream's done, and then we'll, do the same with the next work stream. That doesn't mean that those work streams can't be done somewhat in parallel, or somewhat staggered. They don't have to all be serially. So, we'll work up front with the customer to understand what they want to do. We'll build a plan, we'll build a timeline. We'll help figure out the internal and the external resources needed to do the work, and then we come in and just bang it out.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds very similar to how we would manage any of our projects in-house, whether it's a deployment or platform development for that matter. So we work very, very similarly. You guys are in a slightly different industry vertical than a lot of our typical or traditional partners that we look at, typically in the ERP space, right? So you guys being very specific in the PLM MES area, and those two things are very tightly coupled. I get that. There's a lot of interesting concepts out there right now around digital threads and model-based engineering. I'm curious to hear from your perspective as a firm, how are some of those things taking grasp, or what are you guys doing as a firm to support some of those initiatives?
Digital thread is definitely something that's interesting to us and to most of our customers at this point right now. And it's hard because everyone's got these large enterprise systems. So if you got their CRM systems and your ERP systems and your MES systems and your MOMs and your PLMs and all the acronyms, right?
Yeah.
Um, Now, a lot of those systems, you talk about an ERP system, and they're more transactional based, so they maintain data for their own use. Something like an MES system maintains data for itself, but it maintains relationships to data as well for use in other systems. And a PLM is even further along that spectrum. PLM system doesn't really have its own data, do its own things with. It manages data of other systems. So it manages how that data is related to other data and how when something changes, something else changes. So it's kind of um, a good backbone integration system. Just like there's a big component of MES, it's an integration component, having to get to the machines, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so the two technologies are fairly similar. So tying those two technologies together with the common thought of how to integrate to all of the systems and pieces of equipment around the company is really what creates that digital thread. And so, PLM doesn't typically go down to the shop floor, and
Hmm.
MES doesn't typically go into the engineering systems. And so, between the two of them, you've got basically, the start of a product from its inception all the way through its maintenance and obsolescence um, from a physical standpoint as well as a virtual standpoint then.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So, using some of the language that you use there, the MES seems to be sort of the meat in the sandwich, right? We have the PLM on one end, we have the ERP, we have the MES in the middle, and it's like the MES is sort of the unified hub for a lot of this data. We're collecting it from the shop floor, whether it's from a user or the machine, as you pointed out, right? We do support machine integration through the gateway. We're utilizing some of the data from PLM. We have engineering bombs and routings there. We have planning bombs and routings in the ERP. And then we have to meld that information together and come up with a manufacturing bomb and routing. So there's all these different, concepts, which I think can be, you know, very confusing, especially to a small, mid-sized manufacturers. Probably are not foreign concepts to enterprise, right? Very large companies. They're used to these types of, data concepts. Do you see the same kind of thing in your business? I'm curious, along those lines, smaller companies leaning more towards a, quote unquote, all in one versus, the larger companies that tend to gravitate towards, best in breed solutions to meet those needs.
That's kind of a tricky thing. So we don't necessarily see that large companies do a better job at integrating than small companies. Um, we see that sometimes small companies have a more difficult time funding integrating those different systems, and that the overhead of maintaining the system separately is a different magnitude than maybe a large multinational, multi-plant um, organization. But the need to do it's the same, and the success that we've seen is about the same. Big companies don't necessarily do it better um, than small companies. They just and a lot of them don't necessarily see it as any more important than small companies. They're just more likely to do it at least to a couple of key systems than we see small companies. So when you have an offering that's set for small and mid-sized business, and you can do that, guess what I'd say is economically, then it
Hmm.
makes a lot of sense because in a small company you're a lot closer to the decision makers and the people who are impacted by the decisions that get made. So if you can show a compelling value to do it, you can get it done a little more easily than a big company where you've got to deal with all the politics
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
turf wars because every enterprise system in a large company has a different owner.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
in small companies, sometimes they're all owned by the same couple of folks, and
Yep.
you can simplify some of that. So some things are easier, some are harder.
Yeah, I think we see the same thing, right? On our side, we'll see in the small mid-sized companies typically one application ownership in larger companies, as you pointed out, right? Somebody is responsible for that PLM. Someone else is, or maybe teams are responsible for these different enterprise solutions, and it's difficult to get them to the systems, anyways, to talk to each other in a way that's meaningful and adds value to the company, right? And oftentimes the missing link can be that the middleware or the iPaaS piece, which we do with Fuuz, of course. So it's interesting that you bring up kind of the economics of this. We run into that oftentimes too, and Fuuz, obviously we've designed it cloud first, multi-tenant. That's all about economics, right? That's all about delivering capabilities to people, at mass, at scale, without being single instance, single tenant. So you can get around some of those economic constraints. I'm wondering, if we can talk a little bit now about the partnership with Razorleaf and Fuuz. I was relatively new, and I know we're working on a couple projects together already, which is exciting. Can you speak a little bit to what attracted you guys to the Fuuz technology originally? I know you dabble in PLM and ME, not more than dabble, really, but PLM and MES. I think we have some connections between the two companies. But from a technology standpoint, was there anything in particular that really attracted you guys?
There are technology reasons and then there are business reasons. And the technology reasons is that one is your platform isn't really designed for a single purpose. So it's not just an auto solution or not just a med device solution. So since we work with customers across multiple industries, it's important to us to have a solution that can fit multiple industries. The other is that it's built on a lot newer technologies than a lot of the other solutions out there. So it's easier to work with. It's easier to get up to speed. It's very flexible. So when you've got a team of technical implementers, they like to have fun when they're doing stuff, and it's
Yeah.
fun for them to use better tools, more flexible tools, things that when you're spending time to add value, not just do routines because the system is cumbersome or uses less flexible technologies. Those are some of the reasons. Our team likes it better. So we get into things because our technical folks say, "Boy, that looks like that's better than other things out there, or better than what we're working with. Or looks like it's easier, or it's got something unique about it." The other thing that's nice is that you do go after and you have an offering that's built more for small and mid-sized business if you need it. And well, everyone wants to have a $40 billion company as their customer. You're not going to have too many of those. We work with a lot of small and mid-sized companies, so being able to have something that we can work and use with the customers and the kind of customers we already work with is nice. Not that it can't scale to those larger things, but again, we've got a lot more small and mid-sized customers than we have large customers just by count. So that's kind of the technical side of it. Also, it's got a good integration engine. Integration is something we've already talked about, that we've built our own integration tools because we feel so strongly. And so that your solution was built on an integration engine, to me, is something that's really important. And so, that's kind of a behind the scenes technical differentiation that I think makes you guys stand out. But really, we don't get into anything just for the technology. I mean, you can find good technologies anywhere. It's also about the company to me. And so, we look for someone that's easy to work with. We look for someone that we think is going to succeed in the marketplace. We don't need to work with, the market leader in the industry. We like more to work with the folks that are like us, that are, fighting every day to get better and to be
Yeah.
bigger. I guess the old Hertz and Avis thing, right? I'd rather work
Yeah.
with the guy who's number two than the guy who's number one because
Yep.
they try harder. So there's a lot of that. So, that given where you guys are in your growth and the growth that we anticipate you'll have, we wanted to get in earlier and play a bigger role in your success. Similarly, there's personality things, and you look, just like when you go to work, you take a job because you like the boss you're going to be working for, or
Yeah,
you like the people you're going to be working for. We spend a lot of time working with the companies whose products we implement, and we need to like them. Otherwise, it's a short term kind of a thing, because everything's strained, and you can't really, neither of you can succeed the way you want to. So that there's a good values and personality fit is as important as the technology to me.
that makes a lot of sense, Eric. And I'll say that, as a technology provider, right? A lot of companies out there that are service companies see an opportunity to, extend their services, right, by adding additional technologies to the mix. And we get inquiries all the time. And I'll say one thing that struck me about Razorleaf and the way you guys operate is you did take a lot of time initially to get to know us, not only as a company, but as you pointed out, as individuals, as people, understanding how we operate, personalities. I know we had people, up to our headquarters in Rochester Hills a number of times, prior to all of us coming to the conclusion that it made a lot of sense to partner up. So I can certainly appreciate that, and it makes a huge difference to us as a technology provider because we're truly relying on our partners like Razorleaf to, deliver the product, do it professionally, and do it with quality. And I truly get the sense that that's what your team is all about, and certainly has the experience from the PLM and MES side. They're very conjoined worlds, but very technical worlds too. So I know that you have a highly skilled technical staff that's going to be able to go in and help our clients out tremendously. So we're very excited to have you guys in the ecosystem, of course, and working through some of these projects together. So, thank you for that. Thank you for the way you guys operate, because it's not typical from what we've seen. So you talked a little bit about you've hit on it a couple of times. A typical customer profile, right? So we have probably some potential clients or existing clients that are going to be watching this podcast. And can you dig a little bit more into what is a good profile for Razorleaf? Who should consider working with Razorleaf, or who does Razorleaf consider working with?
It depends on the technology. Some technologies are more expensive and more time consuming to implement, some of the solutions that we service. But if I had to say what our sweet spot is as a customer, I would say 200 million to maybe a few billion in revenue is kind of the sweet spot. We handle larger, and we have customers as small as $10 million. But what you can do at different sizes and how you do it is different. So,
Hmm.
we probably have, oh gosh, I don't know. As you get to, some of the cloud-based solutions, the services necessary are obviously much smaller. The solutions are much less expensive, and so we can do things on the low end there. Similarly, because we're international, we can handle some of the larger organizations as well. But the way you build those teams and the help that people need is different. So when we're doing a few $1 million project, we're probably working with a team of people at the customer, or at multiple customer sites,
Yeah.
and maybe even other vendors in there that we're working with. When we're working with a 10 or $20 million company, we may be the only ones working on the project. They may not even have internal people who have much bandwidth to help us with that. So how we do the project is different.
Hmm.
The projects that are the most satisfying are kind of those mid-sized projects, because you can get something done in a reasonable amount of time for a reasonable cost and show people the results. The small projects, you help people out, but it's really hard to change the world.
Yeah.
And on the big projects, sometimes, you know, you're, even with a multi-million-dollar project, you're a blip on what they're trying to do. So from a satisfaction standpoint, we like the mid-sized ones best.
Sure. Yeah. It's always good to have some sense of satisfaction as a service provider. I used to be one, and that was always the best thing, right? To be able to walk away from a project feeling like you actually did some good for that client, and that becomes a repeat client, a great reference. So I completely get that. You mentioned there that you guys do some work internationally. So talk to me a little bit more about that. Like, what is your footprint as an organization? What different areas of the globe do you service?
So we work primarily in Europe. So we're in
Okay.
kind of the central, well, I would say throughout Europe. And we support some of that with staff in India as well. So we do have Indian resources that we'll use on
Okay.
projects, um, both here in the U.S. and in Europe as we need to.
Okay, that's great. So anybody out there that might be looking to do PLM project or MES project, could certainly reach out to Razorleaf if they've got sites here, certainly, in the United States, North America, as well as Europe. So I think that gives them a lot of great options uh, to work with there. So anything, Eric, along the lines of what do you see happening, or do you have any vision for what the future might look like? Yeah, I know it's kind of a broad ask here, but as we're kind of new along this journey as a partnership with Razorleaf, certainly we have our views of where things can go. But do you see this as something that's maybe transformative for your business? You've mentioned a lot of different things, so I'm just curious to see what your thoughts are and where this will go.
That's a hard one to answer. So
Sorry about that.
um, no, it's okay. We're excited about it because we see there's a lot of growth potential for it. We don't see that the MES space is a fairly fragmented space. There aren't the winners and losers long term haven't been chosen yet, and so we're we're making a bet that you guys are going to be one of those folks, and so we want to help you get there and ride that, ride your coattails to do that. So I don't know that I'd say that we have a top end what we think it can do, but I think that there's clearly, over the next couple of years, I see your business doubling. And if that happens, I see an even larger growth path for us because being that we're new to working uh, with with you guys, we've got a smaller number we're doing, so it's a whole lot easier to grow from that. But I
Sure.
can see this part of our business being probably growing to about a third of our overall business within the next 2 years.
Well, okay.
Just I think it's got that much potential, and given that we're supporting both the product and the services on it, it helps us uh, grow even more quickly.
Yeah. No, that's great. A third, that's significant. So, definitely appreciate that. I mean, when you look at, you made the comment of no clearly defined winner or loser out there yet, right? We look at the Magic Quadrant, and there's certainly a collection of different solutions out there. Fuuz is not yet one of them. There's going to be some, a clear winner and a number of clear losers at some point. So we're excited about this journey as well, right? And we're very excited to have you guys on as a partner. The international capabilities that you offer is huge for us. A lot of our clients fall right in that 200 million to multi-billion-dollar range as well. So that's perfect from a deployment standpoint. So we're very excited about that and the growth opportunities. I just really like working with your team. So huge staff of professionals, very good on the technical aspect, definitely understand the engineering and all the concepts involved with integrations and everything like that. So I think you've got a really good team behind you. And we're very excited to have you guys on board,
Yeah, we're excited
frankly.
about it too.
Yeah. So awesome. Well, Eric, I know you're a very busy guy, and I really appreciate you taking the time today to join us on this podcast. Hope that maybe you learned something, but I can't wait to see you again, next time I visit Ohio. So we'll definitely be getting together again soon in the near future. And thanks again.
Hey, thanks for having me, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Eric. Have a great
See
one.
ya.